Fox Valley Citizens for Peace and Justice welcomes you, and Highland Church of the Brethren also. A lot of hard work has been put into our work from both organizations. Fox Valley Citizens for Peace and Justice is committed to engaging students about the military. We visit once a month 2 schools in Elgin. We want students to especially be aware of the possible dangers of joining the military and the false promises of the recruiters. First, we'll have Sabrina Waller, who served 5 years of honorable active duty service in the United States Navy.
I got involved with the Rock Veterans Against the War in 2010. I participated with Rock Veterans Against the War when we flew back our medals to the NATO general. As a NATO veteran and a post-World War veteran, it was important for me to get rid of those medals. They actually remember getting a text message for some stranger telling me that I couldn't get rid of those medals because they belonged to my son. And I didn't know what it was, and I replied back that those medals were not my son's, the gentleman gave them to me. And it was because of the blood that I had on my hands. Like I couldn't hold on to those. Those were not anything for me to pass on to my child. The work that I do today is definitely what I pass on to him.
I served in the Army for 5 years. After September 11th, I was deployed to the border of Kuwait and Iraq. Before going to that deployment, we were briefed by the Pentagon that Saddam's regime had nothing in the way of NBC weapons. There were, which is military speak for nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons, which is an offhand way of saying that he had no weapons of mass destruction. So I served on that border in Kuwait for about 6 months, and when I came home around the spring, summertime of 2002 is when the Bush administration started making all these fanciful claims about weapons of mass destruction, a link between Saddam's regime and Al-Qaeda, a reconstituted nuclear weapons program, all these things that sounded ridiculous because I had just come from that theater of the world. I've been briefed by the Pentagon on what capabilities Saddam had, or should I say lack thereof. So that really opened my eyes to the fact that I was being lied to. And when I deployed to Iraq in 2004, I had an idea that when the weapons inspectors were called home of who was lying to me. It's very important that we offer these alternatives because kids at 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, they just don't have historical context. They just are ill-equipped to understand the full breadth of responsibility that they're going to have by serving their nation and serving in these over-forgotten wars.
I enlisted in 2002. I got out of high school and graduated. I really didn't have the money or the grades to go to the university, so I just wanted to go to community college. But I've heard all these recruiters going to the high school saying join the reserves, you do a week in a month, 2 weeks a year, and you get paid for school and you get a little extra allowance every month. So I thought it sounded, very easy. And being that no one in my family has ever joined the military, here we used to be the first one not to go to college, but we still joined the military. Well, like Eric said, it all turned out to be a bunch of lies. I came out of boot camp and my training, and I went running, signed up more in college, all excited, a week in a month, 2 weeks a year, and I'm gonna have my cash and my school paid for. 3 months later, I got mobilized and got sent to Colorado to do 18 months of active duty. Went back to reserve status, didn't want to come back home. 8 months after my first mobilization, second mobilization, this time I ended up going to Iraq in 06, 07. And that's when I realized that I was just on 4 years of active duty, and I still haven't gone to college. I was in Iraq doing convoys and convoy security. We took thank God we had no casualties, so we had a lot of people injured, missing limbs. There's too many IEDs, too many explosive warnings. In our civilian equivalents, which is KBR, they were making 5 times more than we were. And then it had to do with the BS of our staff sergeant, because when we came back from mission, we would think we could just go and rest. No, we had to do training about stuff that we didn't even need. And on the other hand, they
when I see how young people that I've talked to who are veterans now looked at their time in joining the military, I saw them in two ways. One is yours, where they're thinking, hey, this is just a couple weekends a week. I could go to college. I could be the first one in my family. That's a great thing to do. And other people looked at it like, I'm going to join the National Guard. One woman explained that she had grown up by the Mississippi River and it flooded all the time. What she remembers is National Guard people coming in and helping families that were stuck in flooded areas. So she thought, National Guard, that's a good thing. They help my family. So she thought, I'm going to be working in Illinois. I'm going to be helping the way someone helped my family. So I think people do it with very noble causes. The other part is I think people joined after 9/11, because of patriotism. They thought, I can go and help people in Iraq and Afghanistan. I can go help our cause, and not really ever seeing it, from your experiences explaining, not even guessing what the reality was going to be like, not even guessing what real things were going to happen. What my own children say to me is, well, what are you telling them they should do then? Because there aren't many things going on, and again, I think we'll talk about alternatives in a little while. But I want to just talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done in Chicago, or we've done, and we see you guys do here, which is having tables, having an opportunity to speak to students as they pass through classes. And again, sometimes people don't want to talk to you. Sometimes people are like, I'm pro-military, so I'm not going to talk to you. I'd love to talk to people like that because I do want to talk about and having them say, well, I'm a veteran, I can't talk to you. It's like, oh yeah, you can. Oh yeah, we can have that conversation because you can talk to almost every veteran and they can tell you some difficult things in their lives and experience. Start with women, start with people of color. The list is endless of negative experiences people have had in the military. Even if they're pro-war and pro-military, they can tell you some of the bad realities of what have happened. How few college counselors or counselors there are within the Chicago public or within the Illinois state schools. I think it's 590 to 1. So that students aren't going to get a direction to college, or they're going to deal with the top level of students to get them into college, and everybody else is on their own for finding your way or figuring out what's next. And that's a disservice when so many people are college eligible or college ready with a bit more of direction from either parents or their school officials. And so those are things that a lot of times I meet people that want to join the military because they want out of their house. They just want out, and I would love to help them arrange getting out of their house if that's what they want. But joining the military is a difficult out of your house option, I think, if that's what you're looking for.
There are so many options. It's almost a shame that we can't find one resource to put them all into a big, massive book that says, here are your options, and it's sort of like a choose-your-own-adventure story, where, okay, well, here are my grades. Well, my grades aren't so good, so maybe not here, but I do want to go here. I want to do it. Yeah. Let's see. Let's start with AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps celebrated 20 years just recently. I hadn't realized that they were only 20 years old. I thought they were a little bit older than that. But AmeriCorps has had almost 1 million volunteers. They're in the 900,000 some odd mark now. And AmeriCorps is a year-long volunteered option that is a government-sponsored program. One of the big benefits that AmeriCorps offers is that you can get money for financial-related expenses or education-related expenses for your schooling. And so if you have completed college and you're not quite sure where to go, you can use the money that you get from AmeriCorps to help pay off your student loans, or you can put it toward future academic endeavors. And that can be pretty broad-ranging as well. If you are just fresh out of high school and you're interested in doing AmeriCorps, this is also a program that is well suited for you. Some volunteer-type programs would certainly work better for people when they have a little bit more life experience. The AmeriCorps is divided into 3 different categories. We have AmeriCorps National Civilian Community Corps. NCCC is set up so that you go into a small group of about 10 or 12 volunteers, and that is your group that you serve with for that year. And you'll go where there is need. And so it's a little bit more transient, and you have to be between 18 and 24. So there is an age limit on this one. It is designed for the younger adult who is not quite sure what it is that they would like to do or who has that desire to serve. A friend of mine from my youth group growing up did NCCC. She made it through 1 year of college and disliked it enough that she threatened to walk the 4-hour drive home. And so her parents said, okay, you're done, that's fine. And she did a year of AmeriCorps. She was based in Colorado, but she served in different components all around the United States. And she did things such as helping with environmental restoration projects and working with those who had developmental delays, and just all sorts of odds and ends types of projects. So it's sort of maybe, I know when I was in middle school we had a class called exploratory arts, and this was sort of the adult version of that, where you got to try out different things to see which ones you like, and which could be very helpful for someone who's still considering what sort of direction they might want to take with their educational goals. You also have AmeriCorps Vista, and Vista is Volunteers in Service to America. And this one is probably designed a little bit more towards someone who is finished with college. It's a little bit more of a startup, do it on your own type thing. You get placed with an organization in a particular area, and you sort of create the work that needs to be done. It kind of reminds me of those who I know who have done Peace Corps. They get placed in a place and they have a general goal, whether it's women's empowerment or health education or agricultural improvement, and you have your goal, and then you need to kind of create it. And so Vista is a little bit more along those lines, where you're a bit more of a grassroots-based community builder. And then the version of AmeriCorps that I participated in, I participated concurrently with my first year of Brother in Volunteer Service when I was in South Central Colorado. I worked at a shelter and a food bank in a very rural, agricultural-based community. The town's called Alamosa, population 8,500 when college is in session. And it's the largest town for about 100 miles in any direction. So it is quite the rural place. AmeriCorps State National is a single placement at a particular project that has a job description. It is a job, more or less, and AmeriCorps will provide your housing, they'll provide you with a small spending stipend, they'll take care of your basic needs. Upon the completion of your year of AmeriCorps, the current cost amount that you get towards your education is $5,730, which is about $1,000 more than when I participated. And so that's a good chunk of change, and it makes things look a lot more reasonable and a little bit less daunting when you're considering higher education being a very expensive route to go. Along those lines, I wanted to put in a good kick for community college. If you're a state resident somewhere, look at the community colleges that you have in your area. I know when I was growing up, you tended to have the idea that people who couldn't quite kick it with the big kids would stay and do community college. It was for like the lower tier students. In reality, I ended up going to that same community college because my first college efforts didn't quite pan out the way I wanted them to. The professors I had at my community college were actually some of the best professors I had in all of my years of college, which it says quite a bit. It was also certainly the cheapest college education that I got, where you pay by the semester hour, and it's very affordable, especially if you are still living at home with parents, if you have parents that are willing to support you, or if they tend to also have a broad enough class range option that you can take classes concurrently with working part-time or even full-time. And so it's an excellent option, especially if you're still sort of floundering with what you're thinking about as far as a topic to focus your educational studies on. So you're not spending $40,000 a year to think about what you want to do, and instead you're spending $2,000 a year to think about what you want to do. Catholic Network of Volunteer Services. This program is a broad group of faith-based volunteer year programs. Brother in Volunteer Service, which I am a part of right now and work for, is one of those options. They have dozens and dozens and dozens of different programs. Some of them are very small and they just represent maybe a single effort in a single city, and then some of them will have hundreds of volunteers. One example that comes to mind is Lutheran Volunteer Corps. They have project sites in probably well over a dozen cities that you can find all over the country. And those tend to be more similar to the AmeriCorps version of the state and national type program, where you have a single project and you are working, you have a job description and you're working in the realm of that job description. My experience was a pretty formative one with my time of community service through those programs. When I was considering what I wanted to do with my time of volunteering, it was important for me to expand myself and to consider maybe what I was not familiar with. Growing up on the cusp of Northern Virginia, I grew up very middle class white. I mean, you could count the black kids on your hands with who went to school, and you knew every Asian kid at your school because there were 4 of them. And so it was good for me to experience different cultures when I went out to do this, and certainly it broadens your scope of how big the world is. Yes, it does sometimes make the world seem smaller, but it also gives you an appreciation for why the world is smaller, because we have so much similarities across the different boundaries that we have. I'll put in a shameless plug for Brother Volunteer Service. Brother Volunteer Service is also very affordable as well. If you have just finished college and you've been paying money for 4 years, or if you're just out of high school and you aren't quite sure what to do yet, you will find something that gives you great passion for something. It may be something that you were fully expecting. If you go work at a homeless shelter, you will probably have a great passion for working with homeless individuals. Or it could be that you have a great passion for the work of the neighborhood that you live in. We've had about half a dozen volunteers in the past 5 years that have gone to work in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the place where I lived. One of my housemates was one of the first ones that they found that it wasn't so much necessarily the work that they did at their project, but it was the community within which they lived that they found their great passion, their great calling, their desire to go and serve. And they stayed in that area. Some of them are still, most of them are still there, and they have worked with programs such as the Walnut Hills Redevelopment Foundation, or they're graduate students at Xavier University working in urban planning. And so that's inspiring to see. Brotherhood Volunteer Service is very affordable too. It costs $75 for your background check and get to orientation. If you stay in the US, those are your costs for the year. We make sure you have housing. You get health insurance, you get your food stipend, and then you get $100 spending money on top of that. So it's very affordable. If you are more of an outdoorsy type and you want to be out and doing things with your hands, there is a program called WOOFER, and it's Willing Workers on Organic Farms, I believe is what the acronym stands for. And there are similar organizations to this. This is probably the best known one. Willing Workers on Organic Farms is a network of farmers and homesteaders and people who live off the land as lightly as they can, who open up their farm, their endeavors, for people who are interested in traveling and coming to give it a test run. It's not for a very long time. You can find them for a year-long time, but oftentimes it's for 2 weeks to 2 months, something that's a little bit more short-term. I've had quite a few friends who have done this, and they've done this in the US, they've done this in Australia, they've done this in Costa Rica, and it gives you a chance to explore the community, the culture in that area, which could be that life-giving zing, or it gives you a chance to also focus on what it takes to really create a living and sustain in a certain area and ways to live lightly on the land. If you know these options exist out there, talk about them. They're exciting to know about. And I think that it's good for people to hear that people still do these sorts of things where they follow off the beaten trail. I think one of the things that makes the military such an easy option is because it's an acceptable deviation of high school, college job. That it's all right to go a little bit against the grain and create that different route. Thanks for your time.